your brain is hijacked. Right now, as you're watching this video, your neural pathways are being shaped by forces you don't even recognize. Algorithms designed to capture your attention, stress hormones flooding your system from constant stimulation, and thought patterns that keep you trapped in cycles of reactivity and overwhelm. But here's what the neuroscience research reveals. You have more power over your brain than you've ever been told. Leading neurobiologist Daniel Siegel discovered that 3 specific practices can literally rewire your neural circuits for calm, focus, and intentional living. Rick Hanson's groundbreaking work on positive neuroplasticity shows that you can deliberately sculpt your brain to experience more peace and less reactivity. And John Kabat-Zinn's research at Harvard Medical School proved that mindfulness practices don't just make you feel better. They physically change the structure of your brain in as little as 8 weeks. The problem is that most people are living in what neuroscientists call continuous partial attention, a state where your brain never fully focuses on anything, constantly scanning for the next stimulus, the next notification, the next source of stimulation. This isn't just making you stressed. It's literally shrinking the parts of your brain responsible for executive function, emotional regulation, and deep thinking. But the solution isn't to retreat from modern life or become a monk. The solution is to understand how your brain actually works and use that knowledge to regain control over your attention, your emotions, and your life. In the next 25 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. You'll learn the specific neuroplasticity techniques that can slow down your perception of time, reduce your stress response, and give you back the mental clarity and emotional stability that constant stimulation has stolen from you. This isn't about meditation retreats or complicated spiritual practices. This is about practical, science-based techniques that you can use immediately to transform your relationship with your own mind. Because your brain is not your master, it's your tool, and it's time you learned how to use it. To regain control of your brain, you first need to understand how it was hijacked in the first place. And the science behind this hijacking is both fascinating and terrifying. Dr. Daniel Siegel, founder of the MindSight Institute and professor at UCLA, discovered that our brains are constantly being shaped by what he calls neural firing patterns. Every experience you have, every thought you think, every emotion you feel is literally carving pathways in your brain. Siegel writes, "Where attention goes, neural firing flows, and neural connection grows. This means that whatever you pay attention to most is what your brain becomes optimized for." And here's the cruel irony. Modern life has designed systems specifically to capture and fragment your attention in ways that make your brain less capable of sustained focus, emotional regulation, and deep thinking. When you constantly check your phone, your brain develops what neuroscientists call task-switching addiction. Each time you shift your attention from one thing to another, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine. This feels good in the moment, but it's training your neural circuits to crave constant stimulation and to become uncomfortable with sustained attention. Dr. Rick Hanson, neuropsychologist and author of Buddha's Brain, explains that this creates what he calls negative neuroplasticity. Your brain becomes increasingly wired for distraction, anxiety, and reactivity. Hanson discovered that our brains have what he terms a negativity bias. We're evolutionarily wired to pay more attention to threats and problems than to positive experiences. This was useful when we lived in environments with physical dangers. But in modern life, this bias gets hijacked by information systems designed to trigger our threat detection mechanisms. Every news alert, every social media notification, every urgent email is activating your brain's alarm system. Your amygdala, the brain's fear center, is constantly firing, flooding your system with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. But here's what most people don't understand. This isn't just making you feel stressed. It's physically changing your brain structure. Research from Harvard Medical School shows that chronic stress actually shrinks the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive function, decision-making, and emotional regulation. At the same time, it enlarges the amygdala, making you even more reactive to stress. Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn, who founded the mindfulness-based stress reduction program at the University of Massachusetts Medical School, calls this the stress response hijacking, the wisdom response. Your brain is stuck in what neuroscientists call sympathetic nervous system dominance, a state of chronic fight-or-flight activation that was never meant to be sustained long-term. But here's the revolutionary discovery. This process is completely reversible. Siegel's research shows that you can deliberately activate what he calls neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to form new neural connections and literally rewire itself. The key is understanding that your brain changes based on what you repeatedly pay attention to. If you've been paying attention to sources of stress, stimulation, and fragmentation, your brain has become optimized for those states. But if you deliberately shift your attention to practices that promote calm, focus, and integration, your brain will rewire itself for those states instead. The neuroscience is clear. You can take back control of your brain, but you need to understand the specific mechanisms that create lasting change. The most powerful discovery in modern neuroscience is that you can deliberately direct your brain's plasticity. Dr. Rick Hanson calls this self-directed neuroplasticity, the ability to use your mind to change your brain in positive ways. But here's what most people get wrong. They think neuroplasticity happens automatically through positive thinking or good intentions. The reality is much more specific and much more powerful. Hanson discovered that lasting neural change requires what he calls taking in the good, a specific process that involves 4 distinct steps: have it, enrich it, absorb it, and link it. Here's how this works at the neural level. When you have a positive experience, feeling calm, focused, or peaceful, that experience exists only in what neuroscientists call state-dependent memory. It feels good in the moment, but it doesn't create lasting change in your brain structure. To create lasting change, you need to deliberately install these positive experiences into your neural architecture. This requires what Hanson calls enriching the experience, paying attention to it for at least 10 to 20 seconds, noticing the physical sensations, emotions, and thoughts associated with it. During this enrichment phase, your brain releases what neuroscientists call consolidation factors, proteins that literally strengthen the neural connections associated with that positive state. But here's the crucial part. You then need to absorb the experience by imagining it sinking into your body and brain, becoming part of who you are. This activates what researchers call memory consolidation, the process by which temporary experiences become permanent neural structures. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research at UCLA shows that this process can be dramatically accelerated through what he calls mind sight, the ability to see the internal world of yourself and others. Siegel discovered that when you develop the capacity to observe your own mental processes, your thoughts, emotions, and sensations, without being overwhelmed by them, you activate the brain's integration circuits. These integration circuits, located primarily in the prefrontal cortex, are responsible for what Siegel calls the 9 functions of the middle, prefrontal cortex: body regulation, attuned communication, emotional balance, fear extinction, response flexibility, insight, empathy, morality, and intuition. When these circuits are active, your brain literally integrates information from different regions more effectively, creating what Siegel calls neural integration, a state of mental health and well-being. But here's the key insight. You can deliberately activate these integration circuits through specific practices. The first is what Siegel calls mindful awareness, paying attention to your present moment experience with curiosity and acceptance rather than judgment or reactivity. Research from Harvard Medical School, led by Dr. Sarah Lazar, shows that just 8 weeks of mindfulness practice increases the thickness of the prefrontal cortex and decreases the size of the amygdala. This isn't just feeling calmer. This is literally growing the parts of your brain responsible for emotional regulation and shrinking the parts responsible for stress reactivity. The second practice is what Hansen calls positive neuroplasticity training, deliberately cultivating and installing positive mental states. Instead of just hoping that good experiences will stick, you systematically practice generating states of calm, focus, compassion, and confidence, and then use the 4-step process to install them into your neural architecture. The third practice is what Jon Kabat-Zinn calls mindfulness-based stress reduction, using awareness practices to interrupt the automatic stress response and activate what he calls the relaxation response. Kabat-Zinn's research shows that mindfulness practice doesn't just reduce stress. It fundamentally changes how your brain processes stressful information. Instead of immediately activating the fight-or-flight response, mindfulness creates what he calls response flexibility, the ability to pause between stimulus and response and choose how to react. This pause is where your power lies. In that moment of awareness, you can choose to activate the neural circuits associated with calm, clarity, and wise action, instead of the circuits associated with reactivity, anxiety, and impulsive behavior. But here's what makes this truly revolutionary. These changes compound over time. Each time you practice these techniques, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with mental clarity and emotional stability, while weakening the pathways associated with stress and reactivity. Neuroscientists call this Hebb's Law. Neurons that fire together, wire together. The more you practice states of calm focus, the more your brain becomes naturally inclined toward those states. One of the most profound effects of regaining control of your brain is that you literally change your perception of time. And the neuroscience behind this is remarkable. Dr. Daniel Siegel discovered that when your brain is in a state of what he calls integration, time seems to slow down. You experience what he calls temporal spaciousness, the feeling that you have enough time, that you're not rushing, that you can be present with whatever is happening. But when your brain is fragmented, constantly switching between tasks, reacting to stimuli, operating in fight-or-flight mode, time seems to speed up. You feel like you're always behind, always rushing, never able to catch up. This isn't just a subjective feeling. Research from Stanford University shows that your brain's perception of time is directly related to the level of integration between different neural networks. When your brain is integrated, the default mode network, the brain's background processing system, operates in harmony with the executive attention network and the salience network. This creates what neuroscientists call temporal coherence, a state where your brain processes information in a smooth, coordinated way. But when your brain is fragmented, these networks operate independently, or even in conflict with each other. This creates what researchers call temporal dysregulation, the feeling that time is moving too fast, or that you can't keep up with the pace of your own life. Dr. Rick Hanson's research shows that you can deliberately train your brain to experience temporal spaciousness through what he calls mindful time awareness. The key is understanding that your perception of time is largely determined by the quality of your attention. When your attention is fragmented, jumping from thought to thought, task to task, stimulus to stimulus, time feels compressed because your brain is constantly in task-switching mode. But when your attention is unified and present, time seems to expand because your brain is processing information more deeply and completely. Hanson discovered that there are specific practices that can train your brain for temporal spaciousness. First, what he calls single-tasking meditation, deliberately focusing on one thing at a time for extended periods. This trains your brain to sustain attention rather than constantly switching between different stimuli. Research from the University of California, Santa Barbara, shows that just 2 weeks of single-tasking practice significantly improves working memory, reduces mind wandering, and increases the feeling of having enough time. Second, what Siegel calls time-in practices. Deliberately slowing down your movements, your breathing, and your mental processes. When you move slowly and deliberately, you activate what neuroscientists call the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and digest response. This not only reduces stress hormones, but also changes your brain's temporal processing. Studies from Harvard Medical School show that slow, deliberate movement activates the prefrontal cortex and increases what researchers call temporal resolution, your brain's ability to perceive fine-grained differences in time. Third, what Jon Kabat-Zinn calls mindful breathing, using your breath as an anchor for present moment awareness. Your breath is always happening in the present moment, so when you focus on your breathing, you're training your brain to be present, rather than lost in thoughts about the past or future. But here's the deeper insight. Kabat-Zinn's research shows that mindful breathing doesn't just calm your mind, it literally synchronizes different brain networks. When you breathe mindfully, your brain waves begin to synchronize in what neuroscientists call neural coherence. This coherence creates the subjective experience of time slowing down because your brain is processing information in a more integrated, harmonious way. The fourth practice is what Hanson calls savoring meditation, deliberately extending positive experiences by paying attention to them for longer periods. Most positive experiences last only a few seconds in our awareness before our minds move on to something else. But when you deliberately savor positive experiences, really feeling them, noticing their qualities, allowing them to fill your awareness, you not only install them more deeply into your neural architecture, but you also train your brain to experience temporal richness. Research from the University of Pennsylvania shows that people who practice savoring meditation report feeling like they have more time in their lives, even when their external schedules haven't changed. But here's the most powerful insight. When you regain control of your attention and slow down your perception of time, you don't just feel better, you become more effective. Studies from MIT show that people who feel like they have enough time make better decisions, are more creative, and experience less stress, even when they're dealing with the same external pressures as people who feel time-pressured. This is because temporal spaciousness allows your brain to access what neuroscientists call insight networks, neural circuits that are responsible for creative problem-solving, pattern recognition, and wise decision-making. When you feel rushed and pressured, these networks shut down, and you operate primarily from your brain's survival circuits. But when you feel spacious and present, you can access your brain's highest capacities for intelligence, creativity, and wisdom. Now that you understand the science, let's get practical. Here are the specific techniques that neuroscience research shows can reprogram your nervous system for calm, focus, and temporal spaciousness. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research identifies what he calls the daily dozen, 12 activities that promote neural integration and mental well-being. But for regaining control of your brain and slowing down your life, there are 4 core practices that are most essential. First, the integration breath. Siegel discovered that specific breathing patterns can rapidly shift your brain from fragmentation to integration. The technique is simple but powerful. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Breathe out for 6 counts. Hold for 2 counts. Repeat this pattern for at least 2 minutes. This breathing pattern activates what neuroscientists call the vagus nerve, the main pathway of your parasympathetic nervous system. When your vagus nerve is activated, it sends signals to your brain to shift from fight or flight mode to rest and digest mode. But here's the key. You need to do this consistently. Research shows that it takes at least 21 days of consistent practice to create lasting changes in your nervous system's default patterns. Second, Hanson's HEAL technique. Rick Hanson's research shows that you can systematically install positive experiences into your brain using his 4-step HEAL process. H. Have the experience. Notice when you're feeling calm, focused, or peaceful, even if it's just for a moment. E. Enrich the experience. Stay with the feeling for 10 to 20 seconds. Notice where you feel it in your body. What emotions are present? What thoughts arise? A. Absorb the experience. Imagine the positive feeling sinking into your body and brain, becoming part of who you are. L. Link the experience. If you're dealing with stress or anxiety, hold both the positive feeling and the challenging situation in your awareness simultaneously, allowing the positive to gradually transform your relationship with the challenge. Hanson's research shows that practicing HEAL for just a few minutes each day can create measurable changes in brain structure within weeks. Third, Kabat-Zinn's body scan. John Kabat-Zinn developed the body scan technique as a way to train your brain for present moment awareness and nervous system regulation. The practice involves systematically moving your attention through different parts of your body, noticing sensations without trying to change them. Research from the University of Massachusetts Medical School shows that regular body scan practice increases the thickness of the insula, the brain region responsible for interoceptive awareness, or your ability to sense what's happening inside your body. When your insula is well developed, you become much better at recognizing stress in your body before it becomes overwhelming, and you can intervene with calming techniques before your nervous system becomes dysregulated. Fourth, Siegel's Wheel of Awareness. This is perhaps the most powerful technique for developing what Siegel calls mind sight, the ability to see your own mental processes clearly. Imagine your awareness as the hub of a wheel, with different aspects of your experience as spokes radiating out from the center. The rim of the wheel contains 4 segments: your 5 senses, your internal bodily sensations, your mental activities, thoughts and emotions, and your sense of connection to others and the world. The practice involves moving your attention systematically around the rim while maintaining awareness of yourself as the hub, the observer of all these experiences. Siegel's research shows that regular wheel of awareness practice strengthens the neural circuits responsible for emotional regulation, self-awareness, and what he calls response flexibility. The ability to pause between stimulus and response. But here's what makes these practices truly transformative. They work synergistically. When you combine breathing techniques with positive neuroplasticity training, body awareness, and mindful observation, you create what neuroscientists call neural coherence, a state where different brain networks operate in harmony. The daily protocol. Based on the research, here's a simple daily protocol that can reprogram your nervous system. Morning, 5 minutes. Start with the integration breath to shift your nervous system into a calm, focused state. Throughout the day, practice HEAL whenever you notice positive moments, a beautiful sunset, a moment of connection with someone, a feeling of accomplishment. Midday, 10 minutes. Do a brief body scan to check in with your nervous system and release any accumulated tension. Evening, 10 minutes. Practice the wheel of awareness to integrate the day's experiences and prepare your brain for restorative sleep. Research from Stanford University shows that people who follow this type of protocol for 30 days report significant improvements in stress levels, sleep quality, emotional regulation, and the feeling of having enough time. But here's the crucial insight. These aren't just relaxation techniques. They're neuroplasticity practices that are literally rewiring your brain for greater resilience, clarity, and well-being. Each time you practice, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with calm awareness and weakening the pathways associated with stress reactivity. Over time, calm awareness becomes your brain's default mode rather than something you have to work to achieve. The ultimate goal isn't to become a meditation expert or to retreat from modern life. The goal is to integrate these neuroscience-based practices into your daily life so that you can engage with the world from a place of calm clarity rather than reactive overwhelm. Dr. Daniel Siegel calls this living with mindsight, the ability to maintain awareness of your internal state while fully engaging with external demands. But here's what most people struggle with. They think they need to choose between being effective in the world and being calm and present. The neuroscience research shows the opposite is true. When your brain is integrated and your nervous system is regulated, you actually become more effective, more creative, and more resilient in dealing with life's challenges. Studies from Harvard Business School show that leaders who practice mindfulness and nervous system regulation make better decisions, have more innovative ideas, and create more positive work environments than leaders who operate from chronic stress and reactivity. But integration requires what Siegel calls intentional living. Making conscious choices about how you engage with technology, relationships, and daily activities based on their impact on your neural well-being. Technology integration. Instead of being a passive victim of technology's attention-hijacking systems, you can use technology intentionally to support your neural health. Set specific times for checking email and social media rather than responding to every notification. Research from the University of California, Irvine shows that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after an interruption. So constant notifications keep your brain in a perpetual state of fragmentation. Use apps that support mindfulness and nervous system regulation rather than apps designed to capture and fragment your attention. Create digital Sabbaths, regular periods where you disconnect from devices and reconnect with present moment awareness. Relationship integration. Siegel's research shows that healthy relationships are one of the most powerful factors in maintaining neural integration. But this requires what he calls attuned communication. The ability to be present with others while maintaining awareness of your own internal state. Practice what Kabat-Zinn calls mindful listening, giving your full attention to others without planning what you're going to say next or judging what they're sharing. Use Hanson's HEAL technique in relationships, deliberately noticing and absorbing moments of connection, appreciation, and love. When conflicts arise, use the integration breath to regulate your nervous system before responding, allowing you to engage from wisdom rather than reactivity. Work integration. Instead of multitasking, which research shows actually decreases productivity and increases stress, practice what neuroscientists call sequential tasking, giving your full attention to one thing at a time. Take what Siegel calls integration breaks, brief periods throughout the day where you practice breathing, body awareness, or mindful observation to reset your nervous system. Use the HEAL technique to install positive work experiences, moments of accomplishment, collaboration, or creative insight. Physical integration. Your brain and body are intimately connected through what neuroscientists call the embodied mind. Physical practices can rapidly shift your neural state. Research from Stanford University shows that walking, especially in nature, increases activity in the prefrontal cortex and decreases activity in the brain's rumination networks. Practice what Kabat-Zinn calls mindful movement, bringing present moment awareness to physical activities like walking, stretching, or exercise. Use Hanson's technique of taking in the good during physical activities, really feeling and absorbing moments of strength, flexibility, or physical pleasure. Sleep integration. Quality. Sleep is essential for neural integration and nervous system regulation. But many people's sleep is disrupted by the same fragmentation patterns that affect their waking hours. Create what Siegel calls a sleep sanctuary, a bedroom environment that supports nervous system regulation rather than stimulation. Practice the integration breath or body scan before sleep to shift your nervous system into rest mode. Use Hanson's technique of reviewing positive moments from the day before sleep, allowing your brain to consolidate positive experiences during the night. The long-term vision. When you consistently practice these integration techniques, something remarkable happens. You begin to live from what Siegel calls your wise self, rather than your reactive self. Your wise self is the part of you that can see clearly, respond thoughtfully, and maintain equanimity even in challenging situations. It's not that you never experience stress or difficulty, but you have the neural resources to meet challenges from a place of strength rather than overwhelm. Research from the University of Wisconsin shows that people who practice neural integration techniques for 6 months or more show increased activity in brain regions associated with well-being, compassion, and resilience, even when they're not actively practicing. This is the ultimate goal: to rewire your brain so that calm clarity becomes your default mode of being rather than something you have to work to achieve. But remember, this is a practice, not a destination. Your brain is constantly being shaped by your experiences, so maintaining neural integration requires ongoing attention and intention. The good news is that the more you practice, the easier it becomes. What initially requires conscious effort eventually becomes automatic as your brain's new neural pathways become stronger and more established. You have the power to regain control of your brain and slow down your life. The neuroscience is clear, the techniques are proven, and the benefits are profound. The only question is, will you use this power? Your brain is waiting for your direction. It's time to take back control and create the calm, focused, intentional life that you deserve. If this video helped you understand how to regain control of your brain, make sure to subscribe for more insights into mental well-being.